We've already been having lots of chats about where the sunshine's been hitting all of us this morning. So welcome everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Sheni Ravji-Smith. I'm the head of system OD leadership and wellbeing based at the Health and Social Care Partnership. And I'm also the wellbeing lead for the system wellbeing programme across Greater Manchester. Hopefully all of you will have some sort of understanding around the Greater Manchester Wellbeing Toolkit or some of the activities that have been delivered, or perhaps you're one of our partners or a guardian across our system. So welcome to everybody who's come along today to the second relaunch of the Greater Manchester Wellbeing Toolkit. We're very, very pleased to be here today. Just to give you a little bit of a heads up, we are recording this morning's session so we can share it with colleagues who aren't able to be here with us today. So just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that. And we do ask, as I've mentioned, please do keep your cameras on and your mics on mute. It's lovely to see everyone's faces. And it's not that we don't want to hear from you with the mic being on mute. So please do contribute. So you can either do a virtual hand, a real hand, put some comments into the chat.
You've gone on mute, Sheni. Sheni, you've gone on mute. We've missed the last bit of that.
Oh, I don't know why I went on mute there. Where did I get up to?
Just talk with your hands after hands or chat.
So virtual, maybe that's what did it. Virtual hands, real hands, put things into the chat. We do want to hear your thoughts. And if there's anything as you're listening to the kind of the next hour or so, if there's anything that kind of captures your imagination or you've got some feedback on or would just like to reflect on, then please do share it with us. We are going to be connecting with you in a couple of different ways. So we're going to be using Menti later on in the session. So for those of you who've used Menti before, that's brilliant, and we'll talk you through that. But first of all, what we'd like to do is start off with a bit of a check-in and a poll. So I'm going to hand you over to Michelle.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to launch a poll, which should come up on your screen now. And this is just a really nice way to start off our session. Just to check in, how are you feeling today? Feeling good, happy, okay, not so good? Good, we're getting lots of feeling good, lots of happy. Okay.
So
brilliant.
do you want, sorry, are you asking for an update how we're all feeling?
Has that not come on your screen, Joe?
No.
Did you?
Hang on.
Are you on a mobile phone?
No, I'm on laptop.
All right, it should come up on your screen. If you want to just pop into the chat whether you're feeling good, happy, okay, or not so good. If you're happy to share. It is an anonymous poll, so we don't generally know who's replied to what, but it's just really just a little bit of fun just to check where people are up to today. So we've got a second question that I'm just about to launch. And this is, pick one or two of the feelings, emotions that you've already experienced today. Joy, hope, pride, gratitude, love, interest, awe, amusement, serenity, happiness, quietness. You can pick one or two. And the purpose for doing this really today is just to make us more self-aware of recognising the good stuff around us. And, you know, quite rightly, we were talking about the weather just before and how that makes us all feel good. So it's just around recognising those positive affirmations and what they mean to our well-being.
Brilliant. Thank you, Michelle. We can see kind of people putting their feedback in, and I think, if I'm not incorrect, love wins out, which is good. So everybody choose love. That's brilliant. Yeah. I love that.
Who knows what they've all been doing this morning?
I actually very unusually got a hug from my teenage son this morning, so that's my love for me. There we go. Brilliant. Thank you so much for all of that. And as Michelle has said, it's really important that we do think about our well-being on a day-to-day regular basis, that we do check in with ourselves. And this next hour is very much going to be about some of the things that are going on at system level, that we've got developing across Greater Manchester, things that all of you as our colleagues across the system are able to kind of participate in, engage in, embed into wherever your workplace is. So hopefully you're all going to walk away with something a little bit extra around some of the wellbeing activities that are underway. Before we get started, or as we get started, I just want to share the trailer, which you may or may not have seen on Twitter, that was launched 2 days ago. So if you bear with me 1 second while I swap my screens around, and we shall check what this programme is all about.
Whether you need to look after yourself,
support others, or get a little more help, together we can support the well-being
of our workforce
in Greater Manchester.
Brilliant. Hopefully all of you have seen that, and on Twitter. If you haven't, go along and find it. That captures just some of our partners that we've been working with across Greater Manchester over the last 12 months or so. And it's really important for us to make sure that actually this is our programme, our collective programme. We co-productively, collaboratively have been developing this work with all of you, our colleagues across Greater Manchester, and that's a really important part of the work that we've been developing. Our aim is very, very clear. What we want to do is try and influence a cultural shift across all of our workplaces to build a better understanding about what good practice looks like for health and well-being in the workplace, how we can enhance some of the activities that we have individually in our organisations and share them, how we can avoid some of the duplication, how we can identify trends and also increase the impact of the work that we're doing as well. And we want to do that for 2 reasons. The first one is that the focus on this work really started as a bit of a response to the pandemic, and really recognising that our workforce needed something different, something a bit more proactive and a little bit more preventative in terms of well-being. And what we also want to do is really look forward to the development and the when we start moving into those integrated care structures, how we can work better together. So what are the foundation things that we can put into place and make sure that we have good working cultures around all of us, and we do that with equity across Greater Manchester as well. But most important for us, and which is why we're really pleased that you're all here today, is that this is about having conversations, really understanding all of our different perspectives and lenses on what good wellbeing looks like, and how we can collectively start working together to be able to develop that community as strongly as possible, regardless of wherever we work. So on that note, what I'd like to do is hand over to Janet Wilkinson, who's the Chief People Officer for the ICB and is also our Senior Responsible Officer for the Greater Manchester Wellbeing Programme. So good morning, Janet, and welcome.
Thanks, Shenny. And that's Chief People Officer Designate until the 1st of July. Yeah, thank you. So for those that weren't on the call early, like a couple of us were, I think I just wanted to reflect really that I feel happy today. I think the sun's got a lot to do with that. I've also been for a run, and Claire was saying she'd walked her dog. I've done a run this morning, and that helps me to cope with the day. I also feel immense gratitude for lots of things in my life, for the people in my life, for the fact that I live where I do and I'm not subject to some of the atrocities that are going on elsewhere. But I don't always feel like that. My moods vary like everybody's do, don't they? I have days where I feel fairly black. Some of those might be, for personal reasons. Some of them are work reasons. But I think it's just in the context that, we all vary, don't we? We all feel good some days and not so good on other days. So Toolkit, today's the 1st anniversary of when it was originally launched last year. And the intention was to gather all the resources together. We were aware that there was lots of resources out there that people could use to support them, but people were overwhelmed with the choice and how to actually find them. So the original ambition of the Toolkit was to put all those together, to make them accessible for all people across the system, addressing health inequalities across Greater Manchester, so providers, primary care, social care, the voluntary sector and our community and faith networks. It's part of the overall GM Wellbeing programme, and it's the programme is for everyone working across Greater Manchester. We work in partnership. We've got some of those partners here today. Key partners would be Greater Sport and the GM Resilience Hub. So originally, and you will all be aware, the last 2 years, who on earth thought that we would live through something like that? And the toolkit was in response to the pandemic and the inequalities that we were seeing across our system and how people were dealing with it, depending on your employer or which locality you worked in or what your role might be. There was differing tools available, so everyone should be able to access good wellbeing support. It's going to be key to our success as a system going forward. The journey's given us lots of successes. We have had lots of really positive feedback, but it has as well highlighted the amount of work that is still to be done. We are by no means out of this crisis yet. And from a workforce perspective, I think we're possibly not even at the peak of it either. We've set up a system oversight group, which will run past the programme to oversee and bring together all those wellbeing activities that we're working on. And importantly, what it's done is given our workforce choices so that, on a good day, you can offer support to somebody else. On a bad day, you know where to access the resources that are going to support you, whether that's through your workplace, whether it's accessing primary care services or directly linking into some of the specialist services that we have around us. We've also looked at evaluating the impact that the work has had. There's no point in all this work if we don't actually see that it's having a positive impact on people. So people have fed back, and we've recently done some work to gather those views. So the toolkit is viewed very positively. People feel it's a valuable tool as a way of supporting teams and yourself. Equally important to the workshops that have been running, and I'm sure lots of people here have attended some of those workshops. And we will continue to run them. We've been oversubscribed on a number, and we will be continuing to run those. You've also told us that this work has made us more aware of our own well-being, and that I think Sandeep's probably going to say it as well, but it's okay not to be okay. There are things that you can do to help yourself, and there are services you can access to help you. So we are intending to continue to develop this work. We've had quite a lot of investment into GM in order to do this, and we would want to keep seeking continued investment to enable us to build on what we're already doing and continue providing some of those resources. You're all telling us it's important, so make sure, even if you feel that you know the original toolkit really well, please look at the new toolkit. There are some additional resources in there, and we are going to continue building on that. Before I hand back, the other thing I just wanted to say was a big thank you to Sheni and the team, because this has been a lot of work and for over a lot of extended period as well. So a big thank you to all of you. Thanks, Sheni.
Thanks, Tanya. I am blushing under the virtual teams of camera, so thank you so much for that. What we'd like to do is, one of the things that we've been doing, and we've listened very clearly to what you've been telling us, is one of the things you wanted to hear was about some of the insights into the different aspects of wellbeing. So we've recorded a series of videos, and those videos are available, and I'll go through that later on. But I'd like to share one of those videos. So this one is a testimony from Hayley Lever, who's from Greater Sport, and talks a little bit about the importance of well-being on a day-to-day basis in the workplace. So please enjoy.
So I'm Hayley Lever, and I lead GM Moving, and I'm Chief Executive at Greater Sport, which is a charity. And wellbeing for us in the workplace is the fundamental thing, really. So, we believe that if you've got a healthy, happy, well workforce, then they're going to do great work. So that's the starting point. It's kind of the building block for everything else, really. The way we approach it is that we look after our people, and
I do apologise. I have a buffering issue now, so just bear with us while it catches up.
Families, then they will be happy and well. They'll be more productive, more creative, they'll have less time off work. And wellbeing for us is very much about a really holistic approach. So it's about, of course, moving, physical.
Okay, I think we're having some buffering issues this morning with the website. So we'll either come back to that, or we'll make sure that you all get the link to that wonderful video from Hayley. We've got lots of other colleagues as well. Nothing like a little bit of a left field kind of replan of the session itself. So
activity, but it's about good sleep.
Apologies. Get rid of that one there. We'll come back to that, and we will make sure that we share that with you. In the meantime, what I'd like to do is just give you a little bit of insight into some of the work, some of the new things that we've got in the toolkit itself, and hopefully help you navigate through what the toolkit actually brings. So hopefully you can all see those slides there. Wonderful, thank you, Michelle. So as Janet's mentioned, well-being is really, really important to us. So good work and good well-being do go hand in hand. And one of the things that we have done very quickly throughout this whole process is actually define what we think good well-being is. And it's very simply when we're able to be at our best. And that's whether it's at work or at home. Because one of the things that the pandemic in the last couple of years has taught us is that actually, if we really want to respond to what people need, then we have to look at the whole person rather than just the person between 9 to 5 when they turn up at work. So that's really important. We're going to be joined by Sandeep's going to be talking a little bit later on, but I absolutely love this quote, and I think it's really important that we pay attention to it. Our role, what's in our gift and our ability to be able to change is the narrative of what matters to you what's the matter with you to what matters to you. And that's really, really important that we start shifting some of those cultural approaches. The toolkit itself, for those of you who've already had a look, you will know that it's broken down into 3 sections. The first section is about how we look after ourselves. All of this stuff is really, really good advice. So focusing on sleep, focusing on eating, on drinking enough water, making sure that we get enough good exercise, and that's physical activity as opposed to extreme exercise as well. And we've got lots of good kind of resources to help us navigate through some of that, and things that we need to pay attention to keep ourselves well in the first place. The second section, which I think has probably had the biggest response, is about how we support others. So whether you're a team leader, whether you're a manager, or whether you're a good colleague who is either a wellbeing champion or just that broad shoulder that people sometimes lean on, there are lots and lots of resources through that supporting others chapter that really kind of help perhaps find that language to start a conversation to go, are you okay? Many people right at the beginning told us that they wanted to kind of ask questions, they wanted to check in with people, but didn't want to say the wrong thing because they knew that something was a little bit out of kilter. So we've got lots of kind of question banks in there, we've got templates, we've got lots and lots of resources. So if you haven't had a chance to have a look at that, please do check it out from today on the website, because there are lots of new resources on there. And of course, the third really important aspect of this is the responding to need. So one of the big responses that we got back was there is a lot of support out there, and what people were really struggling with was to navigate through that support. So we've gone through it all, we've made sure that we've kind of checked out all the links and that it all kind of interconnects, and we've got a collection of all the resources that are available to everybody who works across our system, regardless of what locality you work in, or who your employer is, or where you are across our workforce itself. So please do have a look at that, and we've made it a little bit easier to navigate through that, which I'll go through in a second. And of course, all of this is really important because we're not just talking about well-being as one aspect. We do look at it through 3 different lenses. The first lens we look at it through is the physical lens. So the importance of being able to be physically active, building it into our day-to-day kind of workings, and making sure that we understand why we do this and how it impacts on our mental well-being and our perspective of what the world looks and feels like at any one time. The practical aspects of well-being are also incredibly important. So that might be being able to access a cycle to work scheme, or it might be more often now we're talking about financial well-being as well. So we've been looking a lot at the provision that's out there so we can make sure that people get access to good financial well-being and support where available, because we know that that's creating greater pressures for people both at home and at work. And then the third aspect, which we do talk a huge amount about, are our psychological well-being aspects. So what does our mental health look like? And I'm not going to touch too much on that because I know Sandeep is going to kind of step into that a little bit more deeper. You told us very clearly that you liked the navigation of the toolkit, which we were really pleased about, actually. You're able to navigate through the toolkit through using any of the tabs at the top, which take you immediately to that new section, or each of these headers are also linked directly to whatever that provision looks like. But we also got some feedback that people just wanted to access it really, really quickly and immediately just jump to the provision that they needed. So at the end of the toolkit, we've also added a signposter, which means that if you're looking for support through your workplace, or whether you're looking to access support directly yourselves, perhaps for a little bit of discretion, or you just feel like your workplace hasn't quite got what you need, what we've also done is we've put hyperlinks here as well, and this takes you through the toolkit and to the resources there, so you can jump in a slightly different way. And that's very, very directly kind of based on the feedback that you've given us. You also told us that you absolutely love the resources, and I know Janet touched on this a little bit. So we've built those resources, and many of those are in the supporting others section. So we have a wellness action plan as a template, and I know lots of people across the system have taken that template and embedded it into whatever one-to-one conversations that they have, or have taken some of the kind of the content of it and embedded it into whatever processes you have in your workplace. And we've updated it with new aspects. So you'll see on here that we've got menopause on here now. We've also included long COVID. We have MSK on here. We've added sleep. So these are some of the themes and the topics that people might want to touch on when having one-to-one conversations, just to make sure that we've captured all the different aspects of what that well-being looks like. We've also got lots of guides, so you'll notice some of the kind of guides that we had from last year. So looking at our purpose, helping with anxiety, breathing better for stress, and for anyone who does yoga or any sort of form of kind of meditative practice, you'll understand the importance of breathing really well to help with some of that. But we've also added new resources as well. So we always encourage everyone to think about setting up a buddy guide or a wellbeing champions kind of system, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And MSK, musculoskeletal impact, is also one of those big things that's emerging, especially over the last year or so. So we've got some new resource. So I talked earlier on about the difference between exercise and physical activity, and we have got some workshops running on this in partnership with Greater Sports, so do sign up to those if you want to. And we've got some resources that have been embedded into the toolkit, so have a look at that. And you can use that on a day-to-day basis. And we take into account that people might be working in the way that we're engaging at the moment, sat at our desk, at a laptop, possibly for most of the working day, or some people might be on their feet a lot because they're on that front line. So we've kind of taken all of that into consideration and put those resources into place. And of course, you told us a lot that what you liked was hearing about other people's stories. You want to hear what other people are doing. So we have got those wellbeing sessions. Please do have a look at them. We've run nearly 100 wellbeing sessions since last March in all sorts of different kind of settings. So whether they've been open group settings or we've worked with individual teams. So do take part in that. And that's a really great way for people to be able to have that safe space to be able to talk about wellbeing. You also talked about podcasts. So today we're launching the first of a mini series of podcasts that's part of a bigger series that have been developed by the Primary Care Excellence team. So today's podcast we'll hear a little bit about later on. And for the next month or so, there'll be a different podcast that's going to be launched every other week. So it'll be 8 weeks. So please do look out for those and sign up through whatever your podcast listener is, because we've got some fantastic conversations underway there. And like I said, you've already kind of half seen that video of Hayley, and we will get that round to you. But we've also recorded a series of spotlight sessions with some of our key partners at the moment to get some insights into wellbeing means to them, and hopefully we'll continue to develop that series, and we'll build that library of insights and stories and case studies over the coming months. So please do look out for that. Things that you really liked that we've kept in the toolkit, I think this is really important to kind of touch on. So a lot of the work that we've been doing is based on the 5 ways to wellbeing. It's not a new thing at all. It's been around for a number of years, but it's really, really sound in its approach. So we will continue to use that as the basis and the foundation of how we talk about wellbeing and what that looks like. And that was developed by the New Economics Foundation nearly 10 years ago now. You've also told us that things like hybrid working are one of those emerging areas that you want to pay attention to. So we mentioned it very briefly about how we're changing the ways of working in that first toolkit, and we've developed that for this one. So do have a look at that new section around hybrid working as well. I do love, for anyone who's been to any of our wellbeing sessions, you know that I absolutely love this image with the apples and the little post-it note, because I think it really captures kind of where we are at the moment. But one of the big things that you fed back to us is the reflection that all of this work is created for all of you around what your own wellbeing looks like. And we talk about it in terms of our stress bucket, and we talk about acknowledging some of the things that impact on our wellbeing, which is that tap at the top. But of course, our wellbeing strategy, our individual wellbeing strategy, is about the tap at the bottom. So paying attention to that is incredibly important. And hopefully the toolkit is going to continue to help build your tools to think about what you might want to put into place into your own personal wellbeing strategy, and support those around you to keep that tap at the bottom flowing. And the other thing that you said to us very, very clearly is there is lots going on out there, and I don't know how it all fits in. So I started this conversation right at the beginning saying that this isn't about us doing this on our own. We are doing all of this in partnership and in collaboration with all of our partners across Greater Manchester, and that's incredibly important to know. So I've just captured some of our partners here. So we've got things like the Good Conversation Guide. Please do have a look at that if you haven't had a look at that. It's a great resource out there. We're working with colleagues at across our population health team and the Good Employment Charter, where they've got a mental health toolkit. Our colleagues at Greater Sport have got an active workplace toolkit, and we have got some sessions coming up with them, and also, they also run their own programs, so do look out for that. We are working in partnership with our colleagues who run the Greater Manchester Bereavement Service. It's one of those areas that is slightly difficult to acknowledge sometimes, that we've all been kind of navigating through and dealing with grief in a very, very quiet way. And for some of us, that grief might actually involve thinking about suicide as well, and how we can be a little bit more suicide aware, support perhaps people who might be treading water a little bit more. And we do need to, unfortunately, get a little bit more comfortable about having those conversations. So we're working in partnership with colleagues there. I've mentioned our wonderful colleagues over at Primary Care Excellence, who are doing some fantastic work across Greater Manchester, working across all of primary care, so the 4 disciplines of general practice, community pharmacy, dentistry and optometry as well, who have slightly different challenges to some of our other colleagues out there across the health and social care system. And of course, we've got a great resource coming from our NHS colleagues as well. So there's a new wellbeing framework that, if you haven't had a chance to have a look at that, please do. And there are lots and lots of national resources out there. So and you can click through all of those through the toolkit also. And finally, this is about working together. I just want to reiterate that this work is only a success because of every single one of you who step into the space and participate in all of the work, contribute to the work, and also help make sure that the work is as relevant and as connected to where the challenges are and what needs to be done. So please do keep talking to us, and we will keep going with the work itself. I'm going to take a breather and I'm going to swap my screens around because I'm on super kind of tech today. And what I'd like to do, I mentioned the podcast. I'd like to play a quick excerpt, an audiogram of the podcast that has been launched today. The first podcast is about Wellbeing Champions, and it's in conversation with Michelle from the System Health and Wellbeing team, and one of Michelle's colleagues from Wigan, Wrightington and Lee Foundation Trust, Anne Carey, who's a nurse and is also the Wellbeing lead. So have a listen to this, and you'll be able to access this through the website as well today.
Shani, I don't know about anyone else, but there wasn't any sound for me.
I couldn't hear anything either. No, I couldn't hear the sound.
Ah, okay. Should we go again? Because it's 30 seconds.
Well, go for it.
I'm going for it. Okay, let's do it again.
There are opportunities and challenges with any aspect of work that people do, but in particular health and well-being, there really does need to be that mindset change about how we think about well-being in the workplace. We have a legacy of focusing more on the technical and operational aspects of work and not so much about that impact on the human and how it impacts people's lives.
Wonderful. Hopefully you all got to hear that a little bit. Fantastic. So Michelle, you're on the call with us today, and you have been doing lots of fantastic work around developing a better understanding about wellbeing champions. Can you talk a little bit about what that means for people?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Shani. Having health and wellbeing champions in the workplace are such a valuable asset to any team, department, organisation. The research tells us that staff who do feel valued and supported, cared about, it does have a positive effect on patient care. Wellbeing champions also support things like improving motivation, staff morale in the workplace, and organisations are more likely to retain staff if an organisation or workplace is seen that they invest in health and wellbeing, that it's seen as a priority, then that is more appealing to people that are going to come on board with that workplace as well. And I think that's just why it's so important that we recognise and embed the wellbeing champion role in any workplace, so it becomes the norm and not just a nice to have.
Brilliant. Thank you, Michelle. And if anyone wanted to get started with setting up wellbeing champions or find out a little bit more, what can they do?
I think there is stuff in the new toolkit. There's guides and things like that in place, so you can check that out. Alternatively, get in touch with us. I'm more than happy to have a conversation. I can talk about this stuff all day. So anybody that wants to have a chat about how to go about setting it up or don't know where to start or looking at how we keep momentum with it, because that's the other thing. This stuff has to keep on going. And if you're struggling a little bit with wanting, you become a bit stagnant and don't know where to go with things, then I can offer some support and guidance around that as well.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. And hopefully we'll see those wellbeing champion networks across Greater Manchester growing bigger and bigger as we go on.
Hope so, Shani.
Wonderful, thank you. At this point, I'd like to invite Sandeep into the conversation. I know Sandeep's been listening very carefully to all the conversations. Sandeep is part of the medical executive team for Greater Manchester and is also the ICS Wellbeing Guardian, so the System Wellbeing Guardian. So welcome, Sandeep.
Thank you, Shani. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, okay, great. I'm taking a breather because actually I have been really listening at just such a lot of richness in the system here. And I think, a lot of the times we are bogged down with what we're not doing. It's always all over the media for health and social care, what we don't do, what we're not doing. But I just want you all to take a moment to actually think about what you are doing. And this is our opportunity. I genuinely believe this is our opportunity. So you've taken me aback, actually, because of so much that you've achieved. So I wanted to start by saying, because not everybody will know me, but yes, I'm part of the medical exec team. But actually, the most important day of my week, I still feel, is that I'm still a practicing paediatric psychiatrist in Wigan, actually, Michelle. So, and yeah, and I kind of stayed in Wigan. I feel like an adopted Wiganer. For 16 years, so I made sure that I could stay and do that. I feel that's a huge privilege to actually be with frontline teams and with our patients. I really do still feel that very strongly. So I feel I'm very much a member of the workforce, and as Janet said, today it's great to see a lot of us are feeling happy and we're feeling a lot better, and I think the sunshine has a lot to do with that, and I'll come to that in a moment. But I don't always feel like that. It doesn't matter how senior you get. It doesn't matter how many years you've been doing it. It actually, behind every patient, politician, professor, professional, whoever we are, we're people. So, we all have to look after our mental health, and we all have to look after our well-being. So I very much feel part of the workforce. And I feel finally, after years and years, we're getting that parity. And I genuinely believe the integrated care system is our opportunity to make sure that as a system, we come together and work together for health and well-being. So as the Wellbeing Guardian, I feel it's been an incredible privilege. Thank you, Janet, Sheni, and the rest of the team, to allow me to work with you. I really do. It's an amazing team. So please, let's be selfish and make use of it for the whole system, because they really are. And they can really work with that whole system, not to duplicate, but to strengthen what you guys, what everyone's doing in their organisations and at place. So it's not about either or, it really is about both. Why do I believe this is really important, other than being a child psychiatrist and a person and a member of the workforce? Well, actually, from ancient philosophers to poets and modern day princes, I do have a soft spot for Prince Harry, although he's gone. But they've reminded us that the greatest wealth is indeed our health. And there's no health without our mental health. The people that are providing health to our communities are all of us. So without those that are caring, being cared for, we're not going to have a health service or a health and social care service to deliver that care. So actually, the single most important asset right now, more than ever before, is our workforce. So for me, I unashamedly say this, Janet knows this, I say it everywhere, in every forum. If there was one ICS priority that we get to vote for, my vote every single time, and I will be saying it in every forum, so tell me to, I will do this, is you have to make workforce wellbeing now. Not just say it, not just tick box it. We have to make this our single most important priority. And I would pledge and do everything I can whilst I have been given this mantle and this platform to do that on behalf of and for our GM system. So just to kind of put a bit of context to this, and I think this is really important because sometimes even I forget this. So it's really helpful for us when we're all together as a system just to remind ourselves, what are we talking about? And I'm not talking NHS. So we're always very guilty of saying NHS. Actually, this is health and social care. This is the whole system. And in GM, I believe, Sheni, I think you've given us a platform and you've really, really done this well. This is the bit that I believe we have done really well, which is we're not talking just about NHS trusts, about our hospitals and our mental health trusts. We are absolutely talking about that whole system. And again, I'll just touch on that. So 1.3 million people employed by the NHS, 1.65 million people by social care. Wow, in this country. That's nearly 9% of the working age population. That is the biggest employer. So it is, I'm afraid, something that this country cannot ignore. It cannot ignore. So let's use that lever. We absolutely have to use that lever now. We were, as a workforce, struggling pre-pandemic, as you all know, and workforce has been our single biggest challenge. But the pandemic that we've all been through has really shone that spotlight. So Sheni, that spotlight, great kind of way to get that communication to people. And the podcast also, I'm dying to get on the podcast. They won't let me yet, but I'm dying to get and do a podcast. But, I will get there. So what's happened since the pandemic, and Janet mentioned it as well, we're just emerging from that. And what do we now have here in our world to deal with is the political situations and instability and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It's not going away, and that impacts on our communities and our people. So we've got to take that into consideration in terms of what are we going to be doing this year. It's not going away. This is really important. So what is the data telling us? Since the pandemic, and it has risen, it was there before, but it's risen. 44% of our workforce, 44%, that is not something that we can ignore, are reporting stress and mental health related difficulties. everything from burnout, which is a whole other session in itself, and we will, that's within the toolkit, described really well. And actually, those are the kinds of things we want to hear from our system. What areas do you want to know more about? What can we help more with, etc. So burnout, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, and musculoskeletal problems that don't always present as obvious mental health difficulties that we really, really need to get to grips with. We've also now got long COVID, very complex. We have never dealt with this before. It's a new virus. We're learning every day about long COVID. We've got long COVID services. They're still developing and starting to deliver. But evaluation now and research is going to be crucial. So I'm just going to share one piece of research from the US. So bear in mind it's US research. However, it's 12 months of data, so it's probably the best we've got so far. It was published in the BMJ in February. The cohort was largely, I don't want to say older because I'm getting there. So, mid 50s, 60s males. So it is a little bit confounded by the fact that it was that cohort. However, 12 months of data shows really clearly if you have had COVID, so you've had COVID either by testing or etc. You are 40, and I'm not talking about long COVID now. You are 40% more likely to develop an anxiety or a depressive disorder, a huge other bit that we have to really be mindful of in our workforce. So going back to our workforce, we now know we have 94,000 vacancies across our country, 94,000, of which roughly a half are nursing. Now, nursing is our biggest workforce. So what are we going to do about this? There isn't going to be a single answer. There isn't a single one reason, but health and well-being is going to be key and crucial. We know now 18% of doctors are leaving the profession, about 19% of nurses, and a further 38% of nurses are thinking about leaving post-pandemic. That isn't small. And most of the reasons cited are health and well-being and better work-life balance. They can't do it anymore. So what are we all doing here in GM as a system? Sheni and Michelle and others have talked to you in detail about some of those things. I've said it before and I will say it again, Sheni. Well done to you and all the team. The GM Wellbeing Toolkit, yes, there are lots of resources out there, nationally and internationally, but they're often quite difficult to navigate. And I say that as a psychiatrist. They really are, because there's so much out there and you get confused. And often when you are either a leader trying to look after your teams or you're an individual feeling stressed, it just becomes very overwhelming and it's just too much. I don't know where to find what I need to find. The GM Wellbeing Toolkit, I genuinely believe, is one of the best, if not the best, the country has. So please, if you're not already using it, use it, come back to us to get, if you want a session, if you want some support with that, that's what we want to do more of this year. We also, I think, we've developed a system oversight group that reports into the People Board. So there's a governance now around workforce wellbeing. That's not about telling people what to do or mandating what organisations and place-based systems do. It's about bringing us all together. And it's about no one sector being more important than another. So it's everybody from health, social care, voluntary community sector, my great friends and colleagues, and I advocate hugely for them because there are unsung heroes often. And the wider ecosystem, wider primary care, and it might also be our independent organisations and beyond. We are going to build that. It's a forum to bring people together, to share and learn, to understand what what we're all doing, but also opportunities to collaborate, work together, because we believe we're better together, we're stronger together. And we might have funding opportunities together rather than duplication. What can we actually do collectively as one GM rather than 10 times? We know we haven't got the capacity and we haven't got the resource to do that. So through my role as Wellbeing Guardian, we've had our first Wellbeing Guardian event. And before I get shot down, in GM, we wanted to do this differently to the rest of the country. The country has really good Wellbeing Guardian networks, which we will still use. But in GM, we wanted it to be not just about the statutory appointments, yet again, only in NHS acute and mental health trusts, but also to include our wellbeing champions, our wellbeing leads, from across all our sectors, so that it was actually a network and a space in GM for wellbeing across all sectors. We've only just started. We're co-developing. We believe very strongly that it's about co-production, co-development. What's going to help us most? What I think Sheni, I and John really realised from that first group session was the fatigue in the room, in our wellbeing leaders, in our wellbeing champions also. So actually, we think it's this year going to be important to do some development work about what's going to help our wellbeing champions, leads and guardians most, and what maybe one thing can we do together. So that's kind of some of the work that we're doing as a system together. Sheni's already mentioned some key areas that the Wellbeing Toolkit is going to bring out through podcasts, through some of the sessions in the toolkit itself: MSK, menopause, bereavement, long COVID, and culture and competency. But for me, also, what's our data telling us? I think, again, is there some room for us to get key messages out there each, what are we concentrating on this quarter or this 6 month? What are those key messages? We know that a third of our nation's sleep has been impacted, and sleep leads to real mental health problems. We know, Sheni's touched on it, musculoskeletal, posture problems because of the way in which we've been working, but there are real things that we can do about spine and spine health. And then we now have well-researched, well-validated, and now scientifically written about Zoom fatigue, a phenomenon that is now being talked about. So that's a whole session in itself. So for me, Sheni's heard me say it before, sleep, screen and spine. We must concentrate on those things that actually are quick wins and easy to do. And what I'd like to just end with, Sheni, if I may, is 3 people who've consented to me sharing a little quote from them. I have wanted to, and it's been really difficult because we've been working digitally and not in real life. But I would love to, if this role continues and I get to do more of this in real life, actually do some listening lounges. And by that, I mean really simple, getting out to organisations and places, put your hand up if you'd like me to come out and meet with you, just to listen. So Sheni, you had the lovely visual I use a lot, which is changing that narrative. In health and care, we're trained a lot to say, so what's the matter with you today? And that narrative needs to change from what's the matter with you to what matters to you. And my question will simply be that, and the rest will be listening. So I just wanted to share 3 things. One of my GP colleagues, one of my a nursing colleague actually that I don't know, and a young person. And the young person is somebody who's been one of our young people wellbeing leads and champions from the voluntary sector, who's done some participation work with further education colleagues. So they've consented but want to remain anonymous, and that's great, and that's fine. So my GP colleague, this is what they said. I feel like I'm letting my NHS family down. I feel like I'm letting my own family down. I feel like I'm letting my patients down, but I just can't do it anymore. I haven't slept in ages. I don't see my family and friends. I lie awake worried about my patients every night. And then when I get to work in surgery, everything's my fault. Where are the claps now? I'm so sorry. I can't do it anymore. A nursing colleague from A&E, I'm guessing was probably late 20s. I was so proud when I graduated. It's what I've always wanted to do. And I was so proud to be working in emergency care. But I just can't do it anymore. It's too much pressure. There's never enough staff. I don't feel I can get the support I need. It's nobody else's fault. That's not what I'm saying. I just can't see things changing. I can't even park my car. I'm exhausted. I don't feel like going out anymore. And I can earn more in a bar. So that's what I'm going to do. And I won't have any stress. A young person that was one of the wellbeing champions who worked with us in participation work. Really candid. This is what I love about teenagers, Sheni. Really, I've got 3 myself, candid as they come. And this was following a day we did about the impact of COVID actually on young people. And part of the day I did a bit of presentation. So this is what they said. Your presentation was absolutely great, and it really was, and the day's been great. But you've got to change that title, Sandeep. So the title of my presentation was A Generation Lost in Lockdown and the Impact of COVID. They said, you've got to change that title. Yes, it's been difficult, and there's loads of us that are actually really struggling with our mental health and well-being particularly in going back to school and thinking about our future. So this was a day about listening to young people, but actually encouraging people to think about a career in health and care and social care. So they said, you've got to change that title. We're not a lost generation. We're not lost in lockdown. Actually, we survived it. We are surviving it. And we want to help other young people because we've actually learned new skills that we never thought we'd have. So you've got to change that title. And I was taken aback, and change it to lived through lockdown. So I have changed the title, and it is now a presentation that is lived through lockdown. We need to listen, not just to our staff right now, but we need to listen to the generation coming through. So Janet mentioned it, Sheni, you've mentioned it about not just about retaining the stuff that we do have now, but actually some of those stuff have left. They've left, they're not coming back. So how do we ensure that the new generation coming through want to not just train here and get those degrees or apprenticeships or whatever it is that they're training, but they actually want to come and work with us. So we need to listen to what they're telling us is going to help them, is what they need in that workplace for their health and well-being. And that comes back to the listening lounges, the opportunities to get out and really sit with people and have those conversations, Jenny, whether it's coffee and conversation, a listening lounge. But that really is the emphasis I want to place this year, both listening to staff and listening to students. We need to get back into our colleges, further education colleges, universities, etc. So this isn't about duplicating the work you're all doing, it's about strengthening. Please come and talk to us. I'm going to end with my prescription to you for the day as a psychiatrist and as your colleague. The sun is shining. Please make 15 minutes. It is that rigid. 15 minutes, either to get out and walk or stretch. It's not a lot. It may seem a lot in the sunshine. Thank you very much. And again, it's a privilege to work with you all.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. And actually, I was going to ask you a question. If there was one thing that you would advise people to do from today, what would that be? But you've already kind of picked up on that. So thank you so much. I'm mindful of time. I do want to make sure that we finish on time. So please do have a look at the website. The links have all been shared in the chat. We'll make sure that we send them out to you all on an email. Do check out our new podcast today, the mini podcast, which is part of the main series that's running. Have a look at the videos and do put things into practice. We're just going to close by doing a quick Menti. We always like to get a bit of feedback. This is about participation and getting a sense of what this has been like for you. So for those of you who've used Menti before, you'll know what to do. And if you haven't, please go to www.menti.com. And the code you'll be asked for is 77528317. That's 77528317. And we have two questions for you. And the first one is, what is the most insightful thing that you have heard or found this morning? From everything that you've heard over the last 60 minutes, what's the one thing that's really stayed with you? Yeah, so lots of people really loving your call to action and the context that you've provided, Sandeep. Impact on having COVID on anxiety, the impact beyond the workplace, taking time away, permissions to work and rest. The you said, we listened, we actioned. I definitely read that in the chat from Joanne. The powerful statistics, and we do need to talk about this a lot more. And everyone coming together to learn and share. Sleep, screen and spine. Wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll keep these open, so please do kind of keep adding to that, and we'll go to the final question, which is your call to action. What are you going to share or do from what you've seen and heard today? So as a result of joining us for this last hour this morning, what is it that you're going to do? Prioritise mental health, listen more, talk less, share with colleagues, and please do share the Wellbeing Toolkit. Share the workshops that we've got. They are open to everyone to sign up to, and share the resources that we're developing. Go for a walk, please do go for a walk in the sunshine. Encourage people to have a look at the toolkit, update the training sessions. Yeah, promote the toolkit as a central resource. And one thing that has worked really well, some people have actually promoted the toolkit as a whole, and other people have taken aspects of the toolkit and embedded it into whatever you've already got. So please do it in a way that works for you. Yep, start thinking about how I can help myself and others, and remind colleagues of this amazing support. And I'm going to end on that one final comment there: practice what I preach. We know that as a workforce, one of the big things that we do is we put others before ourselves. And it's incredibly important that we do practice what we preach. Brilliant. Thank you so much. We'll keep that Menti running in the background, so please do keep adding on to that. I'm mindful we've just hit 10:30. I just want to say thank you so much to all of our colleagues. I'm so pleased to see so many people from across that broadest part of the health and social care system. So we've got colleagues from VCSE this morning, from our social care, from our primary care, as well as our acute private provider and mental health organisations as well. Please keep talking to us. Please keep participating in the work, and tell us what you need. Tell us what's important to you, and hopefully the next 12 months are going to be even better. Thank you so much for coming, and go out and enjoy the sun if you can, at least for the next few minutes. Thank you, everyone, and see you all soon.
Thanks, Shani. Thanks, Sandeep. Bye. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Have